Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Comeback Sports. I am Ben, the producer Kudo, here with Brandon, the coach Perry. We're covering for Pat, the shot caller Flaherty this week, but we're bringing you 10 of the hottest sports topics of the week from around the country and around the world. And we're going to be missing Pat this week, but he had a drive-through penalty, so he's suspended for one show. But we'll get him back next week. So Brandon, how's the outlook for tonight's show? How are you feeling about this?
Hey, producer Ben, good to see you coming out of the box and getting live on TV and getting to show these people your opinions on all these hot topics this week, because we have 10 great topics. And I definitely want to give a shout out to all of our new subscribers out there that are tuning in this week. We really appreciate you. And if you haven't given us a sub yet, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so we can keep giving you this great content weekly. And like producer Ben said, Pat is out this week. It's his off night. He's got a drive-through penalty for multiple incidents on the track. And, you know, Pat, you got to clean it up, but we'll catch you next week.
So you can find our Twitter handles down at the bottom here. Let's see. We're missing Pat this week. Look, he's there we go, Pat. And Pat, if you're there, we also have a call-in number too. So you can give us a call. You can find us in there too. But with that, let's just jump right into our 10 topics. So the first one that we have this week is Westbrook is signed by the Lakers. And you know what I say? You can't buy love. You know, you can try. And I think this is one of those cases. The Lakers ended their season pretty much with LeBron walking out of a game early. And I don't see how you can go from that to adding a few more, you know, like I'm saying, it's like basically you can buy a trophy wife, but you can't buy love. And that's where I'm at with this. So what are your thoughts, Brandon? Is this enough to get them to the championship and to win it?
I mean, that's a really tough question, and it's going to be a question I think most people are going to be asking over the next few weeks here. But to me, this is really just some of the biggest news in sports over the last week. And definitely, you know, even with all the free agent news going on right now in the NBA, I still think this is the biggest story in the NBA right now, because it's LeBron James trying to acquire more talent to go after another title, which I think, you got to put them in the title contention right away with this move. Russell Westbrook is still one of the best players in the NBA. You could even probably put him in the top 10, honestly, with all the skill that this guy has. And he's a triple-double machine, pretty much walking every night.
What makes him so good, Brandon? What makes this guy like one of the tops in the leagues? Because, I mean, for me, I'm a casual basketball fan. I don't know this guy that well. Why is this guy such a superstar?
I think that's the biggest thing, is that he's a walking triple-double. So, I mean, not only can he put up 20 points or 30 or 40 or 50 points in a night, but he can also give you 10, 12 assists and get 10 or 12 rebounds, which from the guard position is something that is really hard to do, is get down there and rebound amongst the bigs, especially to get double-digit numbers rebounding. So the fact that this guy can bring the ball up for you, go coast to coast and score from any point on the court, distribute the ball, and rebound is pretty much everything in this guy's game as far as Russell Westbrook. So the Lakers definitely improved. But let's talk about the deal itself. The Washington Wizards obviously send over Westbrook and 2 second-round picks, and in return they get Kyle Kuzma, who we all know has been on the board and been on the draft and trading board for a long time now, and then KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and then Montrezl Harrell, and then a first-round pick. So, I mean, this was a hefty price for Russell Westbrook. So I think it really shows just how much the Lakers think that it gives them a chance of being able to improve and have a chance to go for the title, because they gave up a lot right there. They gave up 2 young players, a young center, a young forward, and KCP, I think, is, you know, a good veteran forward that is puts up some serious quality minutes. So I think it's just really one of those things where I think the Lakers are going all in this season to try to basically win a title, especially after them seeing Milwaukee kind of steal a title, in their opinion. So now they're going to try to put themselves back in the driver's seat. And we've talked about it on this show many a times with how, Aaron Rodgers wants to have a say in roster management. Well, I can guarantee you that LeBron James had a say in this Westbrook trade.
Mm-hmm. Well, my feeling about it, I got to go back to it. You can't buy love. I mean, basically my feeling is you look at the two teams that were in the finals this year, the Bucks and the Suns, and neither one of those were a super team. They were up against a few super teams with Brooklyn. Brooklyn looked dysfunctional towards the end of their run. They didn't get it done. And the Lakers
too.
Injuries, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors. I mean, barring injuries, I'm just saying that these teams that keep on adding these superstars, it might have worked. I mean, it has worked in the past. I mean, the first time it really worked was when LeBron went and got with Dwayne Wade in Miami, and they got it done. But I think the big three is crucial. Having a big three, like you guys were talking about last week, and pretty much every time we talk about basketball, it's all about the big three. But
sure.
What I'm seeing in the NBA is too much isolation plays, and that breaks down. You need a team game, and what the Bucks were strong because they looked like the Bucks of old. They were able to play a 5-man basketball game, strong pick and roll. And when you saw how do you say his last name, Brandon? I'm still working on it.
Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Yes. I mean, when
one.
you saw the way he was playing that pick and roll game, that was strong. And I mean, if you got him with, let's say, like a Luka, that would be a super team I could buy into. But when you got LeBron James walking off the court, I don't see how you can go from walking off the court to making a awful remake of the Bugs Bunny movie there, Space Jam, to NBA title. I don't see it happening. I see them selling a lot of tickets. I see them selling a lot of jerseys, but NBA title, I don't think so. No chance.
I've got to disagree. I think this puts them into the chances of winning a title, especially with a West that's getting shaken up right now with NBA free agency and some trades. I think this was a piece that they added in that definitely puts them into title contention. It's just the big question is, can they win the whole thing? And I think you bring up a great point with the Bucks playing more team ball, and especially the Suns. They were built around team ball, and they just re-signed Chris Paul. So it looks like they're really wanting to take another run with the same type of team. So, I don't know. It's questionable, but we'll see. And we'll definitely be covering it on this show going forward. But let's move on. You brought the man up, the man of the hour, Luka Lighty, the Olympics, as he has been tearing it up in his Olympic debut for the country of Slovenia and leading them currently to the Olympic semifinals against France tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern here in the States. But man, it's going to be a big game. If he wins this game, Benny, he puts himself in the gold medal match. What do you got with that?
Well, I thought it was funny. I was watching one of the shows that you and Pat were talking about Lucas still having the baby fat. And I mean, it's funny. The guy doesn't look like an NBA athlete. He does not at all. But for whatever reason, he is phenomenal. And the fact that he has so much pride in his home country of Slovenia just really makes this kind of like, I think, a love fest for all basketball fans across the world. I don't think you're going to run into many people who, if you ask them, like here in the United States, what's your number one team? It's the United States. We want the U.S. to win, right? But then what's your number two team? It's got to be Slovenia. There's other teams out there like Australia who are really great teams and everything like that, but there's no love fest with Australia like there is with Luka right now. The guy is an international superstar, and I feel like the whole world takes a little bit of ownership of Luka and what he's doing. It's not just the Slovenia thing. At this point, it's like we all want to see this underdog story go as far as it can go. And could it end in a gold medal? I don't know about that, but I mean, 2 weeks ago, everyone said the USA was a lock. And again, with the USA, I don't see the team basketball being there. And we said if they got off to a slow start, that it was probably gonna be too much to overcome. And you see a lot of the U.S. dominance slipping, like the U.S. women's soccer team, for instance. So the U.S. men's basketball team, we'll see if they can get it going. But as far as Slovenia and Luka, I mean, this guy is phenomenal, and it's hard not to like this team.
Yeah, I agree. It's really hard not to like Luka Doncic. He's one of the best players in the NBA, and he's clearly showing everybody in the world that he's one of the best players in the world, if you didn't really already know. But I agree. And hey, quickly on the United States, since that opening loss to France, they've won every game, and they're on path to possibly meet this Slovenia team in the gold medal match, which I agree. I think that is the game we all want to see at this point. Luka Doncic, the young Slovenian superstar, leading his team to the gold medal match against the NBA superstars of the United States. And so the United States plays at midnight tonight against Australia. I'm going to be checking that game out. And then I'd like to get up early to watch Luka's game. But Luka, I don't know if I'm going to get the coffee going. I might not be up at 7 a.m. to watch a game. But yeah, Luka, this team right now, he's got this Slovenian team undefeated and going into the semifinal match of the Olympics right now. And I mean, this is his Olympic debut, and he has just been tearing it up every single game. 48 points to open it up in his opening game, then goes on, I believe he scored in the 20s and 30s in a couple other games. And the biggest thing to me was they dispatched a Spanish team, one of the greatest in the world, honestly, year after year, is Spain. You brought up Australia as well. And then France, who's also put themselves in the semifinals match. These are teams that you're always seeing up there in the FIBA tournaments and then in the Olympic tournaments. And now you can add Slovenia to that as well, because Luka Doncic is the man right now of the Olympics and possibly going to be an MVP of the NBA coming up here soon. But if we had a vote on MVP of the Olympics right now, undeniably, it's Luka Doncic. And like I said, man, we all want to see that gold medal match of Slovenia versus the United States.
You know, this is interesting too. And I just want to say, if you like the underdog story, if you appreciate the underdog story, not only do you need to root for Luka, you also need to root for Comeback Sports right here.
Yeah.
Right. So
give us a subscribe.
Sports, give us a like, give us a subscribe. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers. We're at around what, 350, 360 right
almost
now.
360, almost 360 before we hopped on here. We're on our way up.
And
Jump
we
on
are
the train now, baby.
We're the unexpected underdogs of sports. We are independent. We're doing it all on our own here. Nobody's telling us what to say. We have full creative control here. The only thing that's holding us back, and this is why I wanted to bring this up, is the Olympics, the Olympic Committee. They want to censor every time we want to show a highlight and talk about Luka. You know, I'm trying to set my DVR for like all these different things that are happening at all these crazy hours. And even on F1, you know, it's Sunday morning starting at 9 o'clock. I'm trying to set that DVR, and it's like my DVR is getting too full, and it's hard, and it's cutting off at the end. I'm setting things for an extra hour before, an extra hour after. And, you know, with Luka, it's like, we want to show you all the Luka highlights, and sometimes we bring it on and we take that censorship hit. But, you know, you got to support Luka and you got to support Comeback Sports. And that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. Brandon, what do you say? Should we move on to topic number 3?
Let's do it. It's a good one. So
topic number 3, we have Sydney McLaughlin, an American star on the track. And she was one that we covered in addition to Sha'Carri Richardson. That was a racer that we were really excited to see. She had the personality. She had the skills for sure, like probably going to be setting a record herself. But the other person we covered was Sydney McLaughlin before this. We knew she had the potential to win gold. Now, I wasn't sure that she was going to set the world record, but, you know, Sha'Carri Richardson had the hair and had the personality. I think Sydney McLaughlin's a little bit more understated, but she has the pedigree that she's made for herself because she's been pretty much famous since high school in regards to track. And she's been a Gatorade sponsored athlete. She's a model, and she's, you know, as much as I'm all for Sha'Carri Richardson kind of doing her thing and being herself, Sydney McLaughlin is turning out to be mature beyond her years and a genuine role model. And now she's a world record holder. So what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, on top of the world record, she's the gold medalist. So she won the gold medal in the women's Olympic 400-meter hurdles finals just last night. And it was an amazing race to watch. And on top of it, she set a world record and obviously a personal record as well. So when you can knock all those off, a personal record in track and field is always amazing to get. Then a world record is amazing to get. And on top of that, a gold medal. I'd say she is doing an amazing job. And like you said, she is the face of USA Track and Field right now. And if USA Track and Field's smart, they will plaster her all over the place because she is amazing on the track and off the track. Like we said, with all of her sponsorships right now, she has a great brand for herself, and it's rightly deserved. Like you said, she's been building it up since she was in high school, came on the world stage at 17 years old in the last Olympics, and hey, got knocked out in the semifinals, then put in a ton of work. She's now 21 years old, and she is now the gold medal winner in this year's Olympics. So it just shows you how after 4 years, she has went through and put all the work in, all the hard work, and she rightly earned this, and it's rightly deserved. And all the attention is rightly deserved. Sydney McLaughlin is an amazing athlete. And, man, she is great. And like I said, this is the face of USA Track and Field, hopefully for the next 10 years, because she is that amazing. You can definitely plan on seeing her in at least another 2 Olympics, which could possibly set her up for 3 gold medals, which is amazing, especially in one event. So, man, I really enjoyed watching this race last night. And we had 2 Americans up there, which was even better. We had an American that won the silver medal as well, and she broke the world record. And then on top of that, Sydney went a little faster and broke the world record even more. So it was crazy. If Sydney McLaughlin wasn't in the race, the second place winner would have also ran a world record. So it just shows you how fast the track is right now at Tokyo. And people have said that the technology with these track surfaces is developing over the years, year after year, and just becoming faster and faster because they want to see more world records and more Olympic records. And, man, did we see one last night with Sydney McLaughlin winning the 400-meter hurdles and getting that gold medal for the U.S.
You know, before we go into the next topic, there's something I want to tie back in that we talked about Luka, and we can't get the clips on this show, right, to show this. We can't show this race. The Olympic Committee, and this goes back to us. We can say what we need to say here on this show. It's not like all the networks on the sports. The Olympic Committee takes ownership of the Olympics. They only care about the profit. That's why when we want to give these athletes praise and we want to show this race, they don't allow it. You know, and what they also don't allow is athletes to speak their mind. So you're not allowed to protest on the podium. Why not? That's a First Amendment right. And think about the history of protests at the Olympics and the fact that you want to somehow stifle that and not let the word get out about what's going on here. So with the Olympics, you know, you have this was a race where you have an athlete who's phenomenal. The second place, the silver athlete, also set a world record. So can you imagine? It's bittersweet, but it just shows how fierce the competition is. And you know, the Olympics. It's like as much as I love supporting the athletes and everything like that, sometimes the way that the Olympic Committee just kind of sides with all these different countries that, you know, they want to kind of keep the athletes quiet and they want things done their own way. These athletes deserve, you know, they get basically, a lot of them are living hand to mouth. They're not rich athletes, some of them, a few of them are. But you have like this second place person here. How many sponsorships is she going to get compared to Sydney? So I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. There's a lot to consider when it comes to the Olympics.
Well, I'll tell you what, she has a lot of sponsors because she's a former gold medalist. So she won the gold. Yeah. So she won the gold medal in the last Olympics and was looking to be the second gold medal of her career. But Sydney McLaughlin just came in and, like I said, developed over these last 4 years to just become such an amazing athlete in the 400 hurdles that Dalilah Muhammad, who was the second place finisher, former gold medalist, all she could get was silver. But like we said, she also ran and beat the former world record. So she improved over the last 4 years. It just shows you how much Sydney McLaughlin improved over her last 4 years and the hard work she put in on the track to have this pay off and to not only, like I said, win the gold medal, but also to set the world record at the same time. There's a lot more you're going to see from Sydney McLaughlin coming up. But hey, let's move on tonight. Let's move on to topic number 4, the Olympic asylum seeker out of Belarus. And this is kind of big news, especially I don't think I've ever seen this at an Olympic game. And maybe some people will say, hey, you're dating yourself there, because maybe there has been. But this is also from the world of track and field. The Belarus track and field sprinter seeking asylum, saying that her country was trying to force her back from the Tokyo Games unwillingly. She said that she got dragged to the airport unwillingly, but luckily at the airport, she got help from the Tokyo officials and from the Tokyo 2020 official games. So it's good to see that at least they're stepping in to help her and protect her. But man, this is such a crazy situation. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of opinions on it.
I got a lot to say about this one. And, this again goes back to how comeback sports, we can say what we need to say here on this show. And what I say about this is another example of the Olympics just basically not caring about the conditions at these different countries. When's the last time you've heard a country being barred, besides like if it's like a doping thing, they get a slap on the wrist or something like that? But what about human rights violations? What about using the power of the Olympics for world good instead of just to line their own pockets? You hear about the different corruption in soccer and everything like that, and I wouldn't be surprised. Yep. If there's a lot of corruption in the Olympics too. But specifically about this asylum thing, Belarus is a country that is in a lot of political turmoil. You have anti-government protests that are going on. And I pulled up a couple of things here. Like this just is like a picture from the airport where she claimed asylum. But this is one of like the political prisons that they have there. So they are silencing dissent in Belarus. Right. But when Belarus shows up to the Olympics, it's like, oh, yeah, we have, the Belarusian team here. Well, let's talk about what's going on in Belarus. And it's important, Olympics want to keep their athletes quiet. They don't want you to speak out. They want you to just act like everything's fine. It's not fine. So here we are. The story was basically that she was being forced into, I believe it was the 400-meter relay or similar. It could have been like the 4x100 relay, something like that. But it was an event that she had not trained for. And the country wanted to make it seem like they had it together and field the team. So they kind of plopped her in. She said, I did not train for this race. I never consented to being on this race. But you guys are trying to force me in. So they showed up at her hotel room and told her, hey, we've got a flight ready for you. You're on your way back to Belarus. And as you can see what's going on in Belarus, this young lady is in a position here where she can kind of put her foot down and ask for help. And thankfully, there's countries like Japan that, have a pretty good record on this sort of thing. But, if this happened, let's say in Russia or something, would the outcome have been different? If you asked for help in Russia, would you get that help? What about in China? Would you get that help? So, here we are. We have an Olympic athlete who's asking for help. And this is the sort of thing that the Olympics is probably a little bit embarrassed about. This should be like the pride of the Olympics, but they just want to keep the athletes quiet and they want to just, keep their own sponsorship dollars coming in. And that's kind of where it's at. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the biggest thing was, she's an Olympic sprinter. And they were trying to force her onto a relay team. And I think that it's a bigger story than even that, to be honest. I think she's kind of just blowing smoke a little bit as far as she's saying that she didn't train for that, because she's a sprinter. She's qualified to run in all the sprints, to be honest. As a track and field coach, trust me, she can run a 1, she can run a 2, she can run a 4. The bigger story is that she criticized what's going on in her country.
Yep.
Yeah, and criticized what's going on back in her country. And so she feels like they're trying to strike back because she criticized the country on social media and some of the government, which I guarantee you Belarus is not going to like our coverage of what's going on over there. But, hey, sorry, that's it. And like you said, you brought up humanitarian rights, and it comes up a lot of times in sports, and rightfully so. It should. So it's just one of those things where I honestly I stand with her, and I'm glad that she's getting asylum in Poland. And it's just really one of those things where, like I said, I can't remember ever seeing this in an Olympics or more recently haven't seen it. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is that she criticized what's going on back home in her country, and her country was trying to silence her. And she's saying, no, I'm not going to stay silent. So hopefully she keeps speaking up in Poland, because she might have just put herself as the big face now of the movement in her country. And I'm sure she is garnering a lot of support there, and rightfully so. But yeah, I mean, it's a big topic, but you know, it's one of those things where I guess we'll have to cover it over the next couple of days here. But let's move on. Let's move on to topic number 5.
All right, let's do it. So topic number 5, we have some a little bit of Pete Rose action going on in the NHL. We got some self-dealing. So basically, when an athlete or an official, basically, I don't know the right word for this, but it violates the nature of the sport. It's
Ethics.
Ethics. It goes on so many levels. You know, it violates what the fans are doing. It violates your teammates, your coach, and of course yourself. But obviously, anyone who's willing to do this sort of like self-dealing. You know, Pete Rose says, "Well, I never threw a game. I always bet on myself." Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. We don't know, Pete. You know, show us the books, and even still, it's like, how are we supposed to know what you did or didn't do? So, yeah. I mean, obviously, this is just an awful black eye for the NHL. But the fact that it was discovered and they're taking action about it, I think is a good sign. It probably like at least gets a few more eyes onto NHL, which has got to be the most boring professional sport out there. Sorry to NHL fans, but I think this is a story that transcends NHL. And you know, it's kind of like, I'm glad it didn't happen in football or something like that, where I would really be upset about that. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, this is a big topic, big story right now in the NHL. So viewers, hey, first, give us a subscribe, give us a like here on Comeback Sports so we can keep delivering you content. And hey, like we were saying, it's Pat's night off tonight. So producer Ben has stepped in to help co-host the show, and we're having fun. We're tearing these topics up. So give us a subscribe and give us a like. But with this is a big topic, especially in the NHL right now. And it's the topic of the Sharks, Evander Kane, possibly betting on himself or betting on other teams in NHL games, and possibly being suspected of throwing those games to win these bets. And this is just a rumor. It's being investigated. And this is a rumor coming out of his wife's mouth. And I don't know, it's tough to believe, because right now they are in a bitter divorce scandal right now, a bitter breakup. And this divorce is getting ugly by the second. And this is one of the ugly things that came out of it, was this comment of her accusing her ex-husband of basically throwing games and betting on them. So it became an instant huge story. Like you said, almost like a Pete Rose-like story. But I'll tell you what's different is Evander is denying these allegations, saying that he does not bet on NHL games, does not bet on his own games. He can't deny that he does bet, though, because just most recently, he was sued by a Las Vegas casino for $500,000 on unpaid debts of gambling. So it clearly shows that he does gamble, and he likes to gamble, and he likes to bet. But the real question that this investigation is going to dive deep into is he betting on NHL games a lot? Is he betting on games that he's playing in? Is he betting on the opposing team? Because those are big questions that people want answered right now. And if he is, you can guarantee that there will be a suspension coming down the line. But right now, it's got to be one of those things where I've got to lean on the side of Evander Kane here and just say that he's denying these allegations right now, saying that he does not bet on the games, does not bet on against his team, and saying that he's true to himself when he steps on the ice. So I'm going to have to believe that. And you know, as an athlete, as a former athlete myself, as a coach, I'm going to side with the player right now. But if there's some more information that comes out that says otherwise, I might quickly have to jump on the other side. But this is a really big story right now. And like I said, until this investigation comes out, there's people that have a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So let me see. I got to close down a couple of these here. I think what we should do is kind of prep up for our next topic, which we're going to get ready to transition over to Shohei. If you want to just give me a second, Brandon, I got too many tabs.
Yeah, send it back to me, man. And so I'll just talk about this. I'll talk about some Super Shohei coming up. Yep. So we're going to be going on to topic number 6, which is Shohei Ohtani. And I know, hey, if you're a viewer to this show, if you're a past viewer, you know just how much we love Super Shohei Ohtani, the young Japanese superstar on this show. but give us a subscribe, give us a like, so we can keep delivering this sports content to you and this Shohei content, because I know we are the #1 show out there covering Super Shohei nonstop, man. And he is really one of the best athletes in Major League Baseball, Ben. Wouldn't you agree?
I would, yeah. And actually, I think what we should do here is just very quickly just take a 5-second or a 10-second TV timeout here while I get the screen refreshed, because it looks like we got a little bit of freezing, and we're going to come back strong and talk about Shohei. So let's just give it a quick second here. I'll be right back with the.
Stay tuned there, folks.
Okay.
Welcome back to Comeback Sports. And hey, we're going to jump right back into it. Topic number 6 tonight, Super Shohei. Shohei Ohtani, the young Japanese superstar, been lighting up baseball all year long. Right now is the odds-on favorite to win Major League Baseball's MVP award, and rightly deserved, man. What do you got on Super Shohei, Ben? Or have you been watching him, or what do you think about this guy?
Oh, yeah. This guy, I mean, I took a little break from baseball because after hockey, it's a slow sport. You know, you got baseball and golf, two slow sports. But when Shohei is on the mound or he's in the batter's box, even if he's on the bench, like between the innings waiting for it, he puts on a show. I mean, you and Pat get to talk about this guy. Not, you know, we don't get to cover him every week because there's so many different topics going on in the world of sport, but we try to cover him frequently. And every time you guys talk about Shohei, I'm sitting back here in the booth and I'm saying, like, I have so much I want to say about this guy. First of all, he's a well-respected baseball player. He's basically one of the classiest baseball players out there. You never see him sulking. I like when we were talking about how he grew up knowing he was going to be a professional baseball player because he was ready to put the work in. He had that chart that he put together. And one of the things he had on his chart was cool head, hot passion. And I think that really goes to show that this guy has what it takes. And now he surpassed everyone's expectations. You had haters, absolute haters, like Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A., you got something to say about Shohei? Well, guess what? He's got not just a whole nation of Japan standing behind him, but you saw, Stephen A., that he has the whole world standing behind him at this point. So Stephen A., I know you're a clout chaser. If you're watching, Stephen A., I got something to say to you. Keep Shohei's mouth out. Keep Shohei's name out your mouth, Stephen A. You are a clout chaser. If you have anything bad to say about Shohei, you're just making yourself look like a fool, okay? So, Shohei, thank you for what you're doing for the game of baseball. You've revitalized it. You've revitalized my passion for baseball. And Japan is so proud of this guy, and there's so many reasons to be proud of him. So what's new with Shohei, Brandon? Bring us up to speed here.
Yeah, now Shohei is the man right now, and I think you brought up a great point that he has definitely revitalized baseball and brought new eyes to it and brought some old fans even back, you know, and and brought the passion back to baseball and the excitement back to baseball, and even people like us wanting to cover baseball again. So it's just really one of those things where I think Shohei Ohtani doesn't get enough credit. And you're starting to see him on the major shows. You're starting to see him on the major networks. Well, he should be plastered all over the place because, like I said, right now he is the odds-on favorite to win baseball's MVP award, meaning he is the best player in the major leagues right now. And like we've said, he is a two-way threat, a two-way superstar, not only on the mound, but also in the field. The first Major League Baseball player ever to be elected to an all-star game for in two positions. I can say that again, the first player ever. You know what I mean? So he's setting records. He's making history right now. We love watching Shohei, but most recently, he's leading the league right now in home runs with 37 home runs. We've got to start thinking, can Shohei get to 50 home runs, which is a great thing that he's tracking down right now. Amazing, considering that he's also a pitcher and he's tracking down 50 home runs right now. But he is also hitting the ball and getting on base a ton right now. So let's just bring up a couple of his stats right now. Like I said, man, he hits for power, but he gets on base. He's got 100 hits right now, 82 RBIs. His batting percentage is .274. Man, he scored 74 runs. All right, so he is just the type of guy, when he gets in the batter's box, he intimidates pitchers, and he either is going to get on base, he's going to get a walk, or he's going to knock one out of the park. Most recently, his 37th home run that he just hit this week was a 463-foot bomb. So it's just really one of those things where he is just knocking the cover off the ball right now. And he gave us a bat flip this week too. So you're starting to see a little bit more of the entertainment side and, maybe a little bit more of that attitude too from Super Shohei saying, hey, I'm the man in baseball right now and I know it. And I'm going to start flexing my muscles. And I love seeing it right now. Like we said, on this show, we love the young Japanese superstar, Shohei Ohtani. Super time, showtime, Shohei. And we will definitely be keeping covering him every week, Ben. But I mean, rightfully so. This is the best story in baseball right now, definitely.
I just want to say one more thing before we move on to cover the Hungarian Grand Prix, where Yuki Tsunoda had an amazing showing too for Japan. But again, these are world-class athletes, and these are people that the entire world can be proud of. But Japan, thank you for showing your love for comeback sports. When we started this show, we started it with 3 friends. We got the producer, we've got the shot caller, and the coach. And one of our first viral topics was about Shohei and the passion that these Japanese fans showed. We had hit after hit coming out of Japan, showing the passion for Shohei. And they were on this in the very early part of the season, before the All-Star ballots were counted, before he is going to be the MVP. And they knew they had something special that they were sharing with us. And part of the story of Shohei is that they did want him to go to the MLB. It hurts to see something you love go away. So like having a star like this leave Japan, but to know that he's going onto the world stage and he is going to not just meet the expectations that they had, but I don't think anyone in Japan could say that he's exceeded any possible expectations that his home country had for him. And I think it's another one of these things that's a gift to the world with Shohei just doing what he's doing. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Super Shohei is the man, and our Japanese subscribers, we love you. Keep checking in with us week after week, and we'll keep this Shohei Ohtani content coming your way. And like producer Ben said, he's chipping in right now in the booth right now. He's doing the booth work, but he's also being a co-host this week because Pat is out. It's his off night. He's got himself a drive-through penalty, and he's off, and producer Ben is killing it with us on the co-host stuff. So, hey, more Super Shohei Ohtani coming your way, but let's move on to topic number 7 tonight. Speaking of drive-through penalties, there probably should have been a couple served in the Hungarian Grand Prix. And in a couple of people's minds, I know the Red Bull fans would have liked to see a couple of drive-through penalties handed out, but hey, instead, Valtteri Bottas has got himself a 5-grid penalty when we come back from the summer break, when we return to Spa, Belgium. So that's something that Mercedes and Valtteri Bottas are going to have to take into play. But the Hungarian Grand Prix, boy, was it an exciting race with Esteban Ocon getting his first win in F1 for the Alpine F1 team. And boy, was it an exciting race, nonstop. You had some great wheel-to-wheel action. Producer Ben, what do you got for us here? What's your reaction on some post-race?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that we knew there were going to be sparks in this race, right?
Yep.
Everyone thought that the sparks were going to be directly between Max and Lewis, the two top racers right now. But what all of us also knew was that Red Bull and apparently a lot of the field are going to try to find any sort of connection they can to blame the man, Lewis Hamilton, for their own faults, right? So it's Bottas, yes, he's on the Mercedes team, but how many people out there can actually say that this man crashed his car deliberately? And not only that, but he knew exactly how, it's like, I'm a decent pool player and I can hit a combo shot, but can I hit a combo shot that's an F1 car in the rain with like 3 or 4 drivers so that everybody gets out of it? The only person who gets out of it, is Lewis. So the fact that they're trying to tie this back to the man, Lewis Hamilton, okay, 7-time F1 champ, my favorite driver on the track. I love, Max. I love, I love what Aston Martin's doing, and that race between Alonso and Lewis was great. But until you can start winning championships yourself, you have to stop. You have to put the excuses to bed and start racing. Okay, Hamilton and Mercedes don't even have the best car this year, but they're now in the points lead, and it's because Red Bull is taking their eye off the track, I guess. I mean, I don't know too many F1 cliches, but what I can tell you is that they've complained themselves into a bit of a hole. I think that Verstappen obviously has the skills to come back, and I think we're going to see a few more points leader changes after we get out of the summer break and back onto the track. I think we're going to see a few changes back and forth. But to try to blame this somehow on Lewis Hamilton, in my mind, is just absolutely bonkers. So for all you F1 fans out there who wanted to complain, oh, Max is down, I think, like 7 points after, he's been taken out here and there and he had his tire blowout and everything. You need to make it through that to become an F1 champion. And until they start owning it, I don't think you're going to see Max take the title home this year. But I've been looking forward to your take on this, Brandon. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, I don't want to go into too much of the Bottas crash because we have a whole topic on that next. But I do want to talk about a little bit, like I'm sure some of the Red Bull fans and Max fans are looking in any kind of conspiracy way to be able to tie Valtteri Bottas and Mercedes to be basically taking out the Red Bulls and making the championship a lot tighter. Because like you said, right now, Lewis Hamilton now has an 8-point lead over Max Verstappen going into the summer break. And hey, that's where we're going to be standing. And also the new leader in the team Drivers Constructors Championship is Mercedes. So they've also taken that lead from Red Bull. So I know Red Bull fans are upset, but you can't tie that. There's no conspiracy in F1. Valtteri Bottas is not going to risk his life on a conspiracy for his team or for Lewis Hamilton. Trust and believe that. Too many dangerous things that happen on the track for a conspiracy like that. So anybody that is thinking that is absurd and hasn't watched F1 enough. But man, was this an amazing race, this Hungarian Grand Prix, with Esteban Ocon winning his first Grand Prix ever for Alpine F1, formerly Renault. And man, is he excited. And you know what? His teammate helped him win it. Okay, Fernando Alonso with his battle with Lewis Hamilton was probably the best on-track action we've seen all year. It probably a battle that went on for about 10 laps, nonstop, just back and forth, corner after corner. Fernando Alonso just sticking his car in the right spot and in the right points to be able to fend off the 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton and keep him back. Because if he did not, I can guarantee you, if Lewis Hamilton got by Fernando Alonso a few laps earlier, he would have went down to chase down Sebastian Vettel and then chase down Esteban Ocon for the win, because this Mercedes car is just so much better right now than the Alpine or the Aston Martin. And you saw actually once he did get by Fernando Alonso that he was pretty much in their rear view when they were crossing the finish line. So that brings to me no doubt in my mind, if Fernando Alonso doesn't pull off that great defensive driving, that Lewis Hamilton would have went on to win the Grand Prix and opened up even a bigger lead in the Drivers' Championship. So I think right now, Max and Red Bull should be kind of licking their wounds and happy that it's only an 8-point lead right now.
Mm-hmm. You know, Brandon, I started out talking about the crash because that's how the race started. But you rightly got me back on track. Okay, I'll focus. We all had a heart palpitation when that crash happened, and when we knew what was going to happen. So let's talk about the rest of the race then. Okay, so they went and did their formation lap, right? And basically it was coming down. Lewis was going turn after turn, saying the tires are dry, the corners are dry. Well, and they were trying to communicate. I know there was some question as to if there would be allowed communication between the teams and the drivers. And due to some of the rules here, they were allowed some communication, from what I understand, to the pit crews. And it was a combination of, Lewis was giving them the feedback that the corners were dry and the sky looked dry. And Mercedes, they said, stay on, don't pit, don't go into the box. We're not going to go for the slicks. And of course, because right now it's like Lewis Hamilton is, even though at the time he wasn't the point leader, it's still, he had pole position and everybody wants to take the king down. So basically when they saw him stay out on his intermediate tires, that was the perfect opportunity for all the rest of the teams to go in and put on the slicks. I think that if you had seen the opposite of it, where he had gone into the box and put on his slicks, you might have seen everyone else continue on and stick with the intermediate tires. And then in that case, Hamilton would be starting at the back of the pack. So it was a gamble, but it was amazing. And I want to know your take on it, because that race between Alonso and Hamilton, when they were going around the turns and Hamilton was pressing and trying to be safe in the pass and respectful. Yeah. But Alonso just made that racing was absolutely gripping. But before that, Brandon, when Hamilton went and got his slicks on, he came back out and he was then at the back of the pack. If not last place, he was pretty much in the the last two. I know he was in last place, I think. So what you saw for the rest of the race, you heard him on the radio say to his team, "I'm not sure. What do we do here, guys?" And they said, "If anyone can do it, Lewis, it's you." And what he went on to do in that race was nothing short of phenomenal. And if it wasn't for the man Alonso, he probably would have come back to win first place in that race. Red Bull fans are going to say, well, that's because Max had half of a car. And I get it. And when you take a look at the pictures and you see that wing that was destroyed on his vehicle, I give Max a lot of credit for that. But the man, Lewis Hamilton, from last place, going car by car, and just overtake by overtake. And we all got to watch it and experience it. And that's a race that I think is going to go down, at least for me, as one of the best ones to watch, because it was like he was basically going through the neighborhood and saying to each person, okay, here you go, I'll pass you. And then here we go, I'll pass you. And here we go, I'll pass you. Yeah. I wanted him to take the pole position and ride it out and win that first place, just straight out of the pole. But the way he did it is nothing short of amazing. So after we got through that crash and he got the slicks on, what was your take on the rest of the race? How did they perform?
Well, yeah, you bring up a great point, how it quickly went from a wet race to a dry race. And it really, you can't even say it was a wet race. It was just a little bit of a slick track with a little bit of an oily track, a little bit of a light rain. And I think that was just really one of those calls where I honestly think that was a fumbled call by Mercedes, in my opinion. So I have a little different view on it than you. I believe that Mercedes fumbled that call and made a bad strategy call, and they should have also came in and got the slick tires and put on the dry tires. If you've seen him come in and put on dry tires right there, he probably would have easily went on to win the race because of the car that he was in and the pace that he has and the driving ability that Lewis Hamilton has around the Hungaroring. He is possibly one of the best drivers on that track. But like you said, once he made that decision of being the only car out there, which many F1 fans, including myself, had never seen anything like that, one car on the grid for a restart. And I think all of us were tweeting out being like, this is crazy. This is amazing. But hey, he came in, put on the dries just a lap later, and then made his way back through the field with a masterclass drive that just shows that Lewis Hamilton is one of the best drivers on the grid. But I've also definitely got to give some credit to Max Verstappen, because after that first lap incident, he could have easily retired that car with all the damage that he took. He was missing half of his floor off of that car, which we all know with the 2020 and 2021 cars that the floor generates a ton of downforce. So pretty much when Christian Horner made that comment of, hey, not too bad with half a car, he was not lying. Max Hamilton, I want to say that. Those are the two guys battling. Max Verstappen was pretty much out there driving with half a car and driving to score some points and possibly driving for a chance to win that championship at the end, because every point matters. I think Max Verstappen knows that. He has matured enough to know, hey, we're not going to retire this car. We're going to try to get it to the end, and I'm going to try to do everything I can. And believe it or not, look at that. He was missing half the floor. He was still making overtakes himself, proving that he is one of the best drivers on the grid, along with the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc and Daniel Ricciardo, in my opinion. So it's just really one of those things where, man, it was an exciting Grand Prix from the start to the finish, with Esteban Ocon getting his first F1 win and his first Grand Prix win. So this was just an amazing Grand Prix race, and I think F1 fans were not let down at all. I think they enjoyed every second of it. But let's move on. Let's move on to the crash and topic number 8 tonight, and that's the Bottas blunder. Bottas outbreaks himself in the rain on lap 1, goes into the back of the McLaren, into the back of Lando Norris, and starts a chain reaction crash that takes out the 2 Red Bulls. So I know Max Verstappen fans and Red Bull fans are a little upset right now, because his race was pretty much compromised immediately going into turn 1 because of Bottas's mistake. Immediately, Valtteri Bottas takes blame for it post-race and says he just made a mistake and outbraked himself in the wet, picked the wrong braking point, and at some point, that was it. His car just locked up, and he was on a ride into the back of Lando Norris and that McLaren and starting that chain reaction crash that ended up taking off half of Max Verstappen's floor and created the big blunder and big bundle that happened here on lap 1 and turn 1. But there was also another crash on lap 1, turn 1 that was started by Lance Stroll deciding that he was going to send a dive bomb down the inside and basically launched himself into Charles Leclerc, which then Charles Leclerc then pinballed himself into Daniel Ricciardo. So there was just about 6 or 7 cars involved in 2 different incidents in this lap 1 incident, but the biggest one was Valtteri Bottas crashing into the back of the McLaren and then chain reaction crashing into the 2 Red Bulls. So Ben Kudo, producer Ben, hey, producer Ben's out of the booth right now, studying in for Pat, who's on himself a drive-through penalty for last week. But producer Ben, I'm sure, is going to have himself a hot take on Valtteri Bottas's outbreaking himself in the rain.
Yeah, so it did look like, if anything, this is the time where you could say this is sort of like the amateurish driving. So this is what amateurish driving looks like. So Christian Horner, if you want to complain about anything, this was kind of your chance. But you're probably going to show your class now and show that you can kind of, have some behavior and not throw out too many insults. Mercedes went and raised their hand and said, yes, we overcorrected, or they basically raised their hand and said, this was our fault. And of course, you have people who say, well, yeah, we know that was your fault. That was pretty obvious. So, I mean, it was a really tough looking track. I know even when I'm trying to drive on the highway and it's raining out, it's like, okay, I'm slowing down, and but when you saw back and saw the replay and what he was looking at, it was absolute chaos in that start between the rain stopped, but there was a lot of mist going around at this point.
Slick track.
The only thing that bothered me about this was how they all try to go back and blame it on on Mercedes and then therefore Hamilton. So they basically tried a lot of ways to kind of put this back on Lewis, and I just didn't think that was fair at all. You know, it was one of those things where Bottas, he looked horrible in that. I have to say it was surprising. And when you hear, I think there's some discussions about who's going to be, you know, Mercedes top drivers for next year, and some incident like this is going to make it a little bit harder to justify Bottas. So what are your thoughts on it, Bryn?
Yeah, no, I mean, rightfully so. Some people are talking about Valtteri Bottas and his mistake, because it was the big blunder that, like I said, not only cost Max Verstappen his race, but also Sergio Perez and Lando Norris. So immediately after the race, Valtteri Bottas was taking responsibility for the crash, saying that he just outbraked himself in the rain and picked his braking point wrong. And immediately, I think we all saw it from his onboard that he was just a little too close in the slipstream and locked up his tires. And from that point on, he was on a ride himself, and there was nothing he was going to be able to do about it. And so, hey, this is F1. We all know one mistake can end your race, but it can also end your rival's race or somebody else's race. And this is clearly what happened here. Lap 1, turn 1, with the Mercedes driver outbraking himself into the back of the McLaren, and then the McLaren, like I said, getting pinballed into Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, which created this big incident, which, like I said, immediately put Sergio Perez out of the race, retiring the car. And I am still shocked that they did not have to retire both Red Bulls, and that Max Verstappen did not have to retire with all the damage that he sustained in that crash as well. But Lando Norris, he had to retire the car as well. Too much floor damage to continue on. But Max Verstappen, like I said, I've got to give him some credit here for going on and having a masterclass drive with having half a floor and half a car and still driving himself up into the points after this first lap accident and first lap crash. But you cannot say that it was a conspiracy theory of Valtteri Bottas saying that, hey, I'm going to lock it up and I'm going to send it down the inside and take out the Red Bulls for the championship. That is not the case. You even brought it up right now. Valtteri Bottas is driving for his job and driving for a position on the grid next year, whether it be for Mercedes or another team on the grid. So he has a lot to lose, just like Max Verstappen and every other driver that suits up and gets in the car and gets on the grid. So I think anybody that's claiming that Valtteri Bottas did this purposely is an idiot and has no clue and needs to watch more F1 to see that's not something that an F1 driver would do purposely and taking somebody out. This is clearly just a mistake where Valtteri Bottas outbraked himself on a slick track in the rain, locked up the tires, was on a ride. Immediately, his tire was off. His race was compromised. He was out of the Grand Prix. And like I said, a lot of other people were out of the Grand Prix. So you've got a lot of teams upset. You've got a lot of fans upset, and rightfully so. But hey, this is F1. First lap crashes happen. First lap incidents happen. This was just another one that went on. And hey, I think the two biggest people that really benefited from this crash were obviously Esteban Ocon, who went on to win the race for Alpine, but also Sebastian Vettel for Aston Martin, who got himself on the podium. Unfortunately, was disqualified later because of a fuel sample that they couldn't get out of his car, and everybody else was promoted. Lewis promoted up to P2. But there was a lot of people that gained out from this crash, including Lewis Hamilton, because he went on to gain points in the Drivers' Championship and now take the lead by 8 points up against Max Verstappen. But just quickly, before I send it back over to you, I think a lot of people, they want to bring up this Bottas incident and this Bottas crash. But hey, we also need to be talking a lot about the Lance Stroll crash on the inside. Lance Stroll making pretty much a bad decision, locking up his tires. And instead of, taking out a couple of cars right away, he says, I'm going to send it down the inside and lock it up on the inside. Instead, locks it up, dive bombs it down the inside, takes out Charles Leclerc, which Charles Leclerc then fumbles himself into Daniel Ricciardo. So there was two crashes on this first lap. And, Valtteri Bottas was the fault at one of them, but Lance Stroll was at fault for the other one.
Mm-hmm. And, I think this is kind of this what we have up here on the screen, again, taken out by Mercedes. And it's really, if Max wants to be a champion, he's driving the best car right now. super talented driver, right? He's got to stop. Now, what happened the prior week at Silverstone, we had the racing incident that was ruled a 10-second penalty by the stewards, and it was appealed by Red Bull. And not only was it appealed, but earlier in the week you had Horner come out and he kind of was kicking the hornet's nest. That's why I always say it's Horner's hornet's nest.
Yeah.
Horner went and he said all this awful stuff about Hamilton that it basically called into question his integrity, his sportsmanship, his ability to hold on against the better car. And he tried to say that it was intentional, or if it wasn't intentional, you'd have to ask Lewis if it was intentional. Of course, you and I knew that Max was going to get sick of answering these questions. And we said, you know what, Hornet, you might want to put a lid on it, because your young driver who needs to focus on the track is getting awfully distracted, rightfully so, by all these questions from the media. But we also said, Max, you've invited a lot of these questions yourself, because instead of downplaying the racing incident, or of course the penalty, but instead of downplaying it yourself and saying, let's move on to Hungary, you entertained so many of those questions. You gave quotes. You were talking trash about Hamilton yourself and saying, oh, well, I was in hospital and he was celebrating. It was his home track. Of course he's going to be celebrating a huge win for his fans there. They want to see him, okay? And so, Max, I'm glad that you're safe. But when it came time for the presser and you started getting these questions, you flipped out on the press and started to swear and said, enough with the blank questions and everything like that. And he wanted to shut down the questions and act like he was above it. Well, you introduced all those questions, and here you are again, now trying to tie this back again to Mercedes. And are you going to be surprised when people ask questions about this, Max? No one's trying to take out your car, okay? We want a fair and square race. We want to see some wheel-to-wheel racing. We want to see some overtakes. We know you're game for it, Max. So stop complaining about it, okay? We want to see the rest of the season play out with some class. And if you keep on making comments like this saying, oh, again, taken out by Mercedes, oh, come on, Max, it's time to put on your big boy driving shoes and just put your pedal to the metal. You're a great racer, and we want to see clean races, and we don't want to hear any more belly aching for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, that's fair play. I mean, I think it's just really one of those things where Valtteri Bottas just made a simple mistake going into turn one on a wet track, and I don't think any of this was intentional. There was no conspiracy theory behind it. Valtteri Bottas has himself a lot to lose, so he's got to take all the blame for this first lap incident, and he is. He's taking all the blame right now and looking forward to moving on to Spa. So let's move on to topic number 9 tonight, because it's a topic that kind of plays into this, and this is the Ferrari team principal saying, hey, rivals should be paying for these crash costs, and if you take us out and you crash us out and it's your fault, you should be the one paying the bill. And this is a big deal right now, because we all know with F1 and the budget cap right now that dollar bills is a big issue in F1. And for all the teams, they have to watch out and not spend too much money on engines or replacement wings or any kind of parts. There is a budget gap. So this is big, and this is a big thing for Ferrari to bring up. But I don't know. It's just really one of those things where I think everybody certainly is going to have an opinion on it. But it's really one of those things, like I said, Ferrari thinks that possibly in the future, F1 should look at a rule where if you caused the incident and you caused the crash, that you should be responsible for paying for it.
Yeah. You know, the thing about this is all these different teams here, they've been kind of waiting a long time to have their spot in the sun and get a championship. And Hamilton has won the past 7 years. Okay, so it's been a long time since anyone's even had a sniff at it. Okay, so not only is everyone on the grid loves and respects Hamilton, even Verstappen, I'm sure, you know, looks up to him, but they all want to win. And for the people who don't have a chance to win, the next best thing to winning is somebody other than Lewis Hamilton winning, to show that it is a competitive field. Now, what we have here is Ferrari basically trying to make excuses. And it's not at the end of the season, it's in the middle of the season. So before they've even, you know, kind of gone through and tried to win with the rules that are in place right now, they're trying to find some twisted way to basically, you know, put up an excuse. And do you think that this excuse is do you feel like they're aiming this at Mercedes, or do you feel like they were blaming somebody else for their portion of the crash? Or what do you think, like, as far as Leclerc, excuse me, would be complaining about here? Where do you think this kind of comes from, and what's their motivation for complaining like this in the middle of the season?
Well, I think this was specifically a shot at McLaren, to be honest. They're the ones that they're battling right now, and the constructors. The McLaren car was the one that they, ended up taking around in the incident where they took around Daniel Ricciardo. And so I think this was a shot at McLaren because this is their rival right now. And it could be a shot at, even Red Bull and Mercedes, because they are their ultimate rivals historically. But yeah, it should have been a shot at Lance Stroll, to be honest, because Lance Stroll was the one who made the dive bomb for Aston Martin down the inside on lap 1 that took out Charles Leclerc and created the pinball effect into the McLaren. So I think if the Ferrari team principal's got anything to say, he should be sending the bill over to Aston Martin, and maybe that's who he was referencing. I could be completely wrong, where he might have been trying to throw some shade at Lance Stroll and Aston Martin and Lawrence Stroll, because Lawrence Stroll's a billionaire, and we definitely know billionaire can pay for the fixes in F1, because that's why he bought the Aston Martin F1 team. The guy's a billionaire, so I'm pretty sure he could afford to fix Ferrari's car because it wasn't their fault there in that incident. Charles Leclerc made a great move down the inside, avoided the first incident and first crash with Valtteri Bottas, but then here comes Lance Stroll down the inside with a classic dive bomb and launches himself into the Ferrari, and immediately, side damage, which was just, it was done right there. It was done. It took some engine damage. They could not even continue on after, I believe, turn 2 or turn 3. Leclerc had to pull the car over. So, I think this could be a shot at multiple teams, including Red Bull, McLaren, and Mercedes, but it also could be a shot directly at Aston Martin and Lance Stroll, because he was the one who caused the accident with Ferrari at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Like I said, there was 2 accidents there on lap 1. Everybody wants to talk about Bottas's mistake, but people not seeming to bring up the mistake that Lance Stroll made with the dive bomb down the inside that caused that second accident. So I don't know. I think this is one of those things where me and you talked about it pre-show, and hey, if you're new, give us a subscribe, give us a like. Producer Ben's out here co-hosting while Pat's on break. But hey, me and you talked about it pre-show, that being like, you can't go ahead and change the rules to your liking and decide that you want to change the rules mid-season. That's definitely something that all the teams would have to look at in between seasons and agree to. And that's the thing. All these rules are agreed to by all the teams ahead of time. So Ferrari, you kind of already agreed to take on your own cost, and that's what you're going to have to do this season. If you want to get rivals to pay, well, guess what? You're going to have to convince your rival to agree to that in the offseason. So this is really one of those things where I don't think you'll ever see this happen in F1. I think this is just a foolish nonsense brought up by the Ferrari team principal. But honestly, I don't think he was serious. I think this was just a direct shot at throwing shade at somebody on the grid, and it probably was at Lance Stroll and Aston Martin.
Well, the competition is getting so fierce between the technology upgrades that people are working on, and the drivers are you have Max and Lewis, 2 extremely talented drivers, and Leclerc, though, he had a kind of a funny comment calling it was quite a bowling game. So at least he kind of had a little bit of a sense of humor about it, even though, he found a good way to do it without questioning anyone's integrity or saying that it was deliberate or so-and-so is trying to take me out. I think what we're seeing this year is it's starting to devolve, and you're having a lot of these team principals who seem to want to be stewards. Well, guess what? You can't coach the game and call the game. You got to do one or the other. So if you want to become a steward, by all means, step away from your role at Ferrari, at Red Bull, and become a steward if that's what you want to do. But if you want to be a team principal, it's time to shut up and drive, okay? So I think that's what it's time to do here. And you need to keep your young drivers, Max and Leclerc, focused and stop making excuses for them, okay? You have a break here to get your repairs done, get people back focused on the next drive that's coming up here. And the team principles, my advice to you is get your young drivers focused, okay? Stop complaining. So, Brandon,
let's move on. Let's move on to topic 10.
Yeah,
let's move on to topic 10, the trade for Foles, a possible trade for Foles. So producer Ben's got a Reggie Wayne jersey on right now. You guys might not be able to see it, but classic Reggie Wayne jersey. So we're going to dive into some NFL football right now and talk about the potential of Nick Foles possibly getting traded, because really that's the hot rumor mill right now is Nick Foles. And, with multiple teams, to be honest, could he go to the Colts? That's the biggest thing, because Carson Wentz has an ankle injury that is potentially going to put him out for 5 to 12 weeks coming forward. So that's where Nick Foles comes into play, possibly them trying to trade for him in the meantime until Carson Wentz can come back off his injury. But there's also a few other teams that are in need of a starting quarterback that I know would possibly think about trading for Nick Foles right now. And Nick Foles came out with a great speech this week talking about he'd be open to a trade because he wants to play and he's a starter. And he said he loved playing for Frank Reich, who is also the Colts head coach. So, producer Ben, what do you got on Nick Foles?
I was never hugely impressed by Nick Foles. He's kind of one of those guys who flies under the radar, but it's like, I don't know. He's got a little bit of an arm, but he just kind of seems like a little bit of a weak player. I think that some of these other teams need to kind of look to the future at this point, and they need to start riding with some of the young quarterbacks who are out there and possibly available. And basically, like a Nick Foles, they've had, they're considering him, and people are saying Phillip Rivers. Well,
Yep.
Phillip Rivers is going to come back and rescue the Colts. I don't see it happening. I'm not a huge fan of Nick Foles. I kind of think he's going to be like a backup this season, is what I think. I don't think he's going to find his way to a starting position. I mean, what are your thoughts on this guy?
Well, I mean, to back your point, he currently is a backup. He's a backup, a third stringer for the Chicago Bears right now, obviously behind their number 1 draft pick, Justin Fields. But I think it's just really one of those things where I do think Nick Foles has a little bit left in the tank. And we've talked about this show many a times with Pat before, that the NFL is quarterback needy and quarterback hungry. And like you said, they've even brought it up with a rumor mill of potentially trying to get Phillip Rivers out of retirement. So that's how bad some of these NFL teams need a quarterback, that they might have to think about trying to drag somebody out of retirement. But I think you've got more of a chance of trading for Nick Foles and seeing what the Bears will take for Nick Foles. Because like I said, in this speech right here, he was fired up saying that he is ready to play again. And clearly he said, when I played for Frank Reich, he tailored the system around me. And you got to see the best of me. And then he went on to say, well, guess what? In that Super Bowl year, I'm playing better right now than I did in that Super Bowl year, and I feel a lot better now. So I think that's one of those things of Nick Foles being the salesman and trying to sell his way into a good trade and trying to get another starting quarterback job, which is great. I think that is the right move for Nick Foles instead of sitting on the bench in Chicago. But I think this is also an athlete, still in his prime, still a lot left in the tank, that does believe in himself, still feels like he can go out and be the starting quarterback of an NFL team. And I kind of got to agree with him, to be honest. He does have a Super Bowl win, clearly beat the New England Patriots there with the Philly special. And he did a great job in that season and in that freaking playoff game and in the playoffs that year. So I don't know. I've got to kind of agree with Nick Foles and still think that he's got a lot left in the tank. It's just, what are you going to be willing to trade for him to get him? And is it the right move for the Colts to bring in this guy? Remember, him and Carson Wentz clearly have some history, and it's not good. I mean, this might be like the Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau feud, because these two guys don't like each other. And I'm talking about Nick Foles even brought it up in that press conference saying, hey, me and Carson have some history there, but I'm willing to overlook it because he wants to go there and play football. So it's just really one of those things where whether the price is going to be right and how much they can get him off the Chicago Bears. But I think the rumor has it that, he's going to get moved over the next few weeks. It's just, what team is he going to go to and who's going to be willing to make that move?
Well, I think that the Bears are right to be going all in on Justin Fields. I mean, and And so that guy, I love the way he throws. I love the way he moves. And you can tell he's putting in the work. He's ready to go. As far as I'm concerned, I think he's going to be one of the top young quarterbacks this year. Now, Nick Foles, you're kind of selling me on him a little bit, and I'll tell you why. I like the idea that he's not trying to just be a backup and collect the paycheck. This guy has a chip on his shoulder and something to prove, okay? So this season is going to be an interesting season where there's going to be a lot of new names, okay? So we could talk about people like Cam Newton, and I'm just thinking, what are the Patriots thinking, having this guy? He's washed up, he's old, he's got no chance, okay? Not a chance in the world, but they're going to stick with him. And then you got, Nick Foles coming over to. Nick Foles is going to lead the Colts to a Super Bowl. No, he's not. You know what's going to happen is the only old man who's going to be going to the Super Bowl, his name is Tom Brady. Okay, the guy still got it. He looks like he's 22. But other than that, you don't. This guy's not going to light the world on fire. So what's the point? And that's what I ask myself sometimes. Where do these what's the end game? Are you trying to win a Super Bowl? Because if so, Nick Foles isn't going to get you there, okay? But he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he wants to prove guys like me wrong who say he's got no chance. So I give him credit for that, and I like what you're saying there. So, if it was me, would I want him to go to the Pats? No, I'd rather have Jimmy Garoppolo come over to the Pats. I'd rather have mac and cheese go start on the Pats. I want nothing to do with Nick Foles. But you know what? He's a competitor, and if he's got some fight left in the tank, he's willing to stay in the pocket and not complain. He says he wants the job. Well, maybe he gets a chance.
Two things quickly before we close out the show. Nick Foles has won a Super Bowl already, so you're kind of wrong, right?
No, I'm not saying that he never won a Super Bowl. I'm saying, is he going to win a Super Bowl again? I don't think so.
That would be the question. That would be the question. Can he do it again? Because he has won one, and he beat our team, unfortunately, to do it. And then quickly with Cam Newton has been getting all the high regards over mac and cheese this week, over your boy. So I'm all for Cam Newton starting and being the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. I know you don't like it, Producer Ben, but if that's what it's going to be, bud.
Yeah, well, if that's what it's going to be, that's what it's going to be. It's like one of those things here where I'm happy to kind of have Cam Newton on the team. He's got a good personality, and he's got like a little bit of swagger and stuff like that, and he's popular with the players. But if we're talking about, can this guy like set the world on fire? I don't think he's going to be able to do that. But it's we're talking about Nick Foles, so we'll cover Cam Newton on the next show. I guess like that, huh? So
fair enough.
Yeah, so.
Well, hey, guys, really want to thank you for tuning in this week to our special. Pat had the night off this week, and Producer Ben did a great job of stepping in and helping co-host the show and also do all of our behind-the-scenes work as well. So he was doing double duty. We appreciate you. Producer Ben, thank you for stepping in. Hey, if you're new to this show, give us a subscribe, give us a like. Make sure you're tuning in every Wednesday at 8 p.m. for Comeback Sports. And hey, we're going to be tuning in every week to bring you some great content. So give us a subscribe, give us a like. Pat will be back next week from his drive-through penalty, and we'll be looking to deliver you a great show. But hey, Producer Ben, once again, thanks for filling in. And hey, let's have a great night. And viewers, you have a great night, and we'll see you next week from Comeback Sports.
Yep. For Pat Flaherty, I am Ben Kudo, the producer, with Brandon, the coach, Perry, and we will see you next week. I'll be back in the booth. We'll have Pat back in here calling the shots like he sees them. And Brandon, you as always, man, great show tonight. It's always a pleasure. I'm going to be rewatching this all week, all the different takes and stuff like that, and texting you and giving you some feedback on this stuff, man. But it's always great to be working with you on the show, man. So great job, and Pat, we'll catch you next time, brother. So for anyone else out there, take care and have a good night.
Give us a subscribe. Give us a like.
There we go. All right, fellas. We'll see you next time from Comeback Sports.